So, all right, Mike. Yep, here we go. So, hi everyone. If there's some people coming in here, but I'm sure we're going to get a lot of people watching this later. So what we're doing today is I have with me Tom Kiely from San Diego, and what he's doing is he's doing something that caught my eye. I saw an article on it. It's he's doing a San Diego estate beer. He's spearheading this project to make a unique San Diego beer. Now, as I'm sure we'll get into a lot of stuff in a while, it's not what we've seen. Like, I mean, I've seen farmhouse brewers do beers off their own locality. This is meant to be a local beer, but on a grander scale, I think, is probably the best way to do it. And incorporates multiple breweries, farmers, home brewers, the whole range. So, before we get into the philosophy and the practicalities and all the challenges of that, maybe Tom, I better allow you to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how you got to this stage.
All right, Brian, thank you for having me. That was a remarkable introduction. It's like you made my own custom intro. That was awesome.
Very good.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. I can hear a little bit of an echo.
I don't hear anything here
Okay.
on
I don't
my
hear it
side.
anymore.
Okay.
I think we're good. So Tom Kiely, I actually just resigned as the GM at Thorn Brewing in San Diego, California. I'm actually in the process of moving back to Boston, which is where I'm from. But I was running Thorn Brewing Company in San Diego, California, and I was a director at the San Diego Brewers Guild and also the Slow Beer Chair of Slow Food Urban San Diego. Slow Food is a global nonprofit, and I was starting the beer program for the San Diego chapter. But I'll get into Slow Food a little bit more with this project. So that's kind of like who I am. I've worked in beer for about 15 years, primarily in distribution and operations. That's been like the majority of it. But the San Diego State Beer Project. So this actually birthed out of my time at Slow Food. Slow Food is celebrates good, clean, and fair throughout the food ecosystem. So think of the exact opposite or the foil to fast food. It's actually how it developed was a response to McDonald's coming into Italy. So it's anti-fast food. So I was working. I've been with Slow Food for about 4 years. And so, how do we incorporate those slow food values into craft beer? Was the goal. So this is the first actually project I took on. It's the San Diego Brew Cycling Collaborative. I'm working with a team of people in San Diego, and we developed a network of breweries to develop our own side streaming recycling program. And this venture, the San Diego State Beer Project, is the more current project that we're just getting off the ground. So the idea of the estate beer project, you may be familiar with estate wines. So an estate wine is a wine where the grapes are grown on site at the winery. So now imagine San Diego County as the uh, as the winery, as the farm, as the land. So we're treating San Diego County as our home, and we are growing the ingredients for our beers in San Diego County. So we're developing new styles of beer that can be made using ingredients grown in San Diego County, and we're doing that to kind of marry San Diego agriculture with San Diego beer. And when you look at the history of beer styles are developed based on what can grow in that region. Yet, if you look at San Diego, our most popular style of beer is a West Coast style IPA. So it's a bitter. Um, I mean, you know what an IPA is, right? But they started off incredibly bitter. Over time, you've seen increased dry hops, decreased bitterness, coming much more aromatic. But the aromatic hops don't grow in San Diego County. A lot of them come from the Pacific Northwest, which is 1,500 miles north of where we are. Our grain comes from Mountain West America, which is 2,000 miles away. And why? Why, when we have one of the most diverse um, agricultural climates in America. It's actually similar to like Mediterranean is what our agricultural climate is like. We have the ability to grow nearly anything, thousands and thousands of things. So why are we getting, our ingredients from these places? A lot of our fruit, we need aseptic fruit so that it doesn't contaminate the beer. A lot of us are ordering it from Oregon fruit puree. Again, Oregon's also in the Pacific Northwest. And then it's not like they're growing all the fruit in Oregon. They're getting it from
Yeah.
throughout the country and in Canada. And then it's coming to Oregon fruit, them making it aseptic and then shipping it to us. So the amount of money that we're spending on freight, the amount of CO2 to get the freight to us, and we are supporting farmers who we don't know. I assume, I don't know all of them, many of them are not engaging in the most um, planet friendly agricultural processes. Yet we have we have the most most small farmers of any county in America, in San Diego. So they can't sell the things that they're growing. Why not support our local farmers? Then we know we have an intimate relationship with the ingredients we're putting into our beer. We're cutting down on the amount of freight, and in theory, if we do it right, we should be saving money because freight's so expensive right now. And in craft beer, at least in American craft beer, we have a very big support local ethos, and but we're not doing it within our own supply chain. So how can we kind of live the values that we espouse and simultaneously make what should be better beer because you have more control over the ingredients? So that's kind of like the idea behind the goals behind San Diego, what motivated it, inspired it.
Okay, I think you've covered nearly every question I had here, so I'm going to go back and
No, I'm
ask
done.
some. You're pretty
Nice to meet you.
comprehensive. But yeah, let's just touch on the thing about the local. I mean, you're saying there that there's a local ethos, and I guess you mean like there is a thing of you will buy from your local brewery, and that's something that is kind of coming in over here as well, I think. And there is a big push. People want to buy local, but as you say, that does not mean that you're buying all local ingredients. You're just
Mm-hmm.
buying the stuff that the brewery happens that
Mm-hmm.
the brewer happens to live near you, not that they're getting everything local. So you're now trying to extend that. And how I just before I get into the practicalities of how you're going to market and how you're going to arrange this, like how are you selling that as a philosophy? Is that something that you think you can sell as a philosophy? That hey, you're not just supporting a local brewer, you're supporting the local farmers and the local, I guess the local environment as well. And as you say, the CO2, is that kind of going to be that the idea behind it, that you can sell to people that this is something that you're supporting the whole community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the first thing you said, when you brought back up supporting local, and it's like, oh, just being made locally, there's a common thing that you see large corporations do in America, and it doesn't say made in America, it says assembled in America. So it's still all Chinese, parts, and then they're just shipping it over, and then it's getting assembled here, and they're selling it as a made in, which it isn't really, right? So it did. I don't know if that term carries over there if you see that, but uh, the best way for us to compete and to win is to have a better price and better quality, right? You can't always do. It's really hard to do both at the same time. The beauty of craft beer is because it's tends to be small and local, and a lot of the breweries that are first engaging in this are all pretty small. For our the first run that we're doing, I can get into it a little bit more. My brewery was the biggest one of the breweries, and before COVID we were 8,000 barrels a year. I don't know what kind of units do you guys talk in over there when you talk beer? Do you do barrels, case
Yeah,
equivalents,
well,
liters?
barrels or liters, yeah. Barrels are like hectoliters and that.
Okay, so
So
you guys do 50-liter kegs.
yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah.
So for you guys, a big keg, actually six. I don't know if you guys use the 60-liter keg. We have breweries with us, right? We do 15.5 gallons is the primary keg size of what you consider like a big keg. And some breweries will do 50-liter kegs, but they really do it because it's a little bit less volume and they'll charge the same price. It's kind of like a cheat. But anyways, we were 8,000 barrels before COVID, but we were pretty draft heavy. I would guess that we were closer to 6 now, but I don't know that exact number. And the other breweries are smaller, so we don't need to sell. It's not like we're Budweiser. We don't need to sell, hundreds of thousands of barrels of this product for it to be a success. We can do small batch, so we can rely on just quality if that's the case, or just people that care, people that actually look out for supporting. Better for You is really popular right now in beverage in America, and people are becoming more and more aware of where their dollar is going. So we are hoping to capitalize on some of that. But again, I think that we are going to be able to make beer and have it price. Hops are so expensive anyway. So yeah, like fruit's really expensive, but we're already buying expensive fruit and we're buying expensive freight. So that there's just a big budget that we can already work within to make it price competitive, and it's in small batches. So we are selling something that's limited, and that helps. You can charge more if you want it, but also we're going to be saving a little bit of money on the ingredients just because it's being sourced locally, that I think that we could just literally make the beer and not say anything about San Diego State, and I think it would do well. But the goal is to focus on, hey, like local supply chain. Here's what we're doing. Sell the story and get people excited about it. But I think it's possible at this stage. We wouldn't even need it to get this thing off the ground. There's already enough support within craft beer in San Diego that a lot of these beers will sell on their own at the volume they need to justify it for the brewery to participate. But for it to go to that next level, then I think we are going to have to sell the story, and I think we can do it.
Right. And just on the cost there, like, so you think the cost to the brewery on this is actually lower than?
So immediately, no. Immediately, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. We don't have the operations in place to make aseptic fruit. We don't have a malting facility in San Diego so that we can grow local barley. These are things that we're working on, but we're not there yet. So off the bat, there are some logistical operational challenges that won't make it cheaper, but we're not far away from having the ability to do so, in
Okay,
my
so
estimation.
right, so yeah, that malt part is interesting. So you are, I mean, again, I don't know San Diego as an area, so
Yeah,
from the sound of it, you say, I mean, it is an area where there is a lot of agriculture, a lot of grain
yeah.
grown, but you have to send it outside to be malted, and
There's not a lot of grain grown,
oh,
but
okay,
we have the ability to. So we have
okay.
the climate, and we have there are the farms. We have the land.
And
So
what are they growing there now?
the farmers? Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of right now in San Diego. I believe the number one crop is ornamental plants. So just like
Okay.
plants people buy for the house. But again, it's farmers are growing not necessarily what's best for their land or what
Yeah.
they want. They're growing what they can sell. So in San Diego, you see there's a lot of avocados, a lot of citrus fruit, the ornamental plants. Those are like types of things you see more of. But we're trying to give them reason to grow these other things. So we're trying to, all right, we're focusing on cover crops. So wheat grows really well in San Diego and it doesn't take a ton of water. From what I understand, I'm not a farmer, so take what I
Yeah.
say with a grain of salt. And so, but avocados are already grown. We grow a ton of them, right? So, in theory, you could have like an avocado field of avocado trees. In between the trees, space that's not being used, you can actually plant wheat, and then it'll actually help sequester carbon. So you can use these crops to use less fertilizer. It's more eco-friendly, and you're maximizing the efficiency of your farm by growing more crops that you can sell. So that's kind of like we're trying to like create these little ecosystems
Right.
within the farms as we're developing some of these beers. So when we're going through what are the styles, the things that we're keeping in mind are what grows well, what could be profitable for the farmers, what grows next to each other, alongside each other, maybe seasonally different, or within a row, or things of that
Okay.
sort.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said at the outset here that this was,
Yeah.
that this was ambitious, because I've seen,
Yeah.
I mean, I know of, and I'm sure you do have too, like, farmhouse breweries that
Mm-hmm.
go full cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and they grow the crops, they malt them, they do everything on the farm, but it's a single farm with a small volume and all that. And like this, I knew why you're expanding it out was an ambitious project. I don't think I realized quite how ambitious you're actually
Yeah.
going. You're really talking about setting up, like, reorganizing farming, setting up a whole logistics thing around it, and then trying to use that as San Diego beer. I mean,
Yeah.
it is.
Easy
Where do
peasy.
you actually start? How did you, like,
So
when you sat down to face this? Did you just want to throw your hands up and say, "This is a terrible idea"?
yeah, well, actually, it's been the easiest. I've had a million ideas. Most of them stink and they don't go anywhere. The brew cycling and this one have really taken off because there's enough people interested to help make it happen. I'm really more just taking an idea and then finding people that are in those spaces to make it work, and pretty much just bridge building. So it's like we already have brewers, and we have brewers that want a higher quality material and they want more local material. We have farmers and that want to grow things that they can make money on, and they have land and they just need something to help grow. And we have organizations. We're working this group called CHIP, and there's this team, and they are dedicated to helping farmers find markets for their product. So they are helping us on the farm side. So I'm not like talking to individual farmers. I'm talking to Chip, and Chip is helping putting the word out to the farmers. And they already have 8 to 10 farmers that are on board to do whatever. They have a farmer that's already doing some research and development in grain to see the grains that are growing well. Um, and he's up in like North County, San Diego, and he's already working on that. We have Admiral Malting, which is a maltster up in the Bay Area, and one of the owners actually flew down to San Diego to meet and talk to our team. They have expressed a willingness to toll malt for us. So toll malting would be we would grow the grain, we would drive up to San Francisco, they'd malt it and drive it back, which doesn't really make sense. It would be good for like a first step just to
Yeah.
see if it works. But they expressed an openness to opening a malting facility in San Diego County if it made sense. So that's where we would want to move to if we were going to move forward on that. But just if I could take a quick step back, um, not every. I mean, even when I'm from Boston, I didn't really know what San Diego was. I knew it was in California, and that's all.
Yeah,
So
that's
if you imagine America as like an oval, it's kind of like a big oval shape in the bottom left corner. So it'll be like right here on the Pacific. We're right in that corner. We border Mexico.
right. Yeah.
And again, it's like if you go across to Europe, it's Mediterranean, so Mediterranean climate. And so Pacific Ocean, the corner, we're in the corner of America, the bottom left corner, Pacific Ocean, Mexico. Um,
Right.
I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. But yeah, so we were just talking about like the ambition of setting up the whole logistics
Oh,
of
oh
it.
yeah, yeah. So I was in the process as a director on the San Diego Brewers Guild, working with a buddy of mine has a group purchasing organization. So group purchasing is when you get a bunch of like businesses together and you leverage your volume and your buying power to get better pricing for everybody. So I was working with a buddy that was already doing something like that to bring it into the Brewers Guild. So the Brewers Guild, we were starting our own group purchasing organization, and my goal was going to leverage that group purchasing organization to kind of be the vehicle that where we could house all the buying and selling of these materials. So that would be like the marketplace for all this stuff. Is like, hey, do you need two row? Do you need cherries? Do you need can trays? And it could be literally everything that a brewer would need. We could buy through this platform.
Okay.
Since I'm leaving San Diego, the group purchasing's kind of fallen by the wayside. I don't know if that's going to get picked back up. I hope it does because I think it'd be really beneficial for the breweries. But that aside, um, the there's just been so many people will like that buy into the idea that, like, Admiral malting, like, I, I bounced the idea off him. He goes, yeah, I love it. I'm in. White Labs has a location in San Diego. Eric Fowler, who's a director on the Brewers Guild with me in San Diego, he works at White Labs. He's participating with us in the project. He's a part of the project, and White Labs is like, yeah, we'll like scrape native cultures if you want, and at least they're open to it if it makes sense. So it's at every chip was like, hell yeah, like we need to find markets for our farmers. Let's go. It's just been like everyone that I brought it up to has been like, hell yeah. Jimbo's is a natural grocery store in San Diego. They have about like 4 locations, and their produce buyer has been to a bunch of our meetings and has is working with us to help connect us with organic farmers in San Diego and giving us heads up on different produce and best times to buy and etc. So it's a lot of people that are just really passionate about these things, whether it's farming or beer, and they've all been like, hell yeah, I love this and I want to be a part of it. So there really hasn't been that many challenges. We're also so early in the process where the real logistical challenges of scaling up haven't hit yet.
Right. That was my next question was where are you? I saw in the article, which by the way I should put somewhere. I'll send it out. But it was the article I read about this in the San Diego magazine. And it said
Oh, it's
that
a
you're
best.
doing, yeah, that's the one. That you're doing a homebrew competition.
Hmm.
And that seemed to be kind of the start of trying to publicize it really among the general public. Is that right? Is that where you are now, or how are you? How is
Yep.
that tying in? Because I presume they can't buy the malt yet. They can't buy
Hmm.
hops yet from there. So how are you managing that in?
Yeah, so you're referencing Beth Demon, who's a friend. She's a beer writer based in San Diego. She wrote an article on the project. That's the one you're referring to, correct?
Yep, that's it. I'm going to just put a link up here now for someone to see. But anyway, yeah, that's the one.
Cool. So she put the word out. She's been to some of the meetings. She actually just helped judge our homebrew competition. So Eric Fowler's idea was, as we're developing this program and we're considering what does a San Diego estate beer look like, we tasked local homebrewers to come up with their own ideas. So we have one of the largest homebrew clubs in the country. Actually, I think it's the largest regional maybe second. It's called Quaff,
Okay.
Quaff. And so we have there's a couple gentlemen there, Pat and Ben. Pat also works at SDSU. He's been really involved in the San Diego Estate Beer Project, and Ben, I think he might be the president of Quaff, but he's been leading the project on the Quaff side, just the homebrew competition. And we put the word out to homebrewers, to Quaff, and to some other regional homebrew clubs. Here's what the San Diego Estate Beer Project is to us. What does a San Diego Estate Beer look like to you? And then we just vaguely grouped the entries as, like, I think we did hoppy, fruit, farmhouse slash grew it, and specialty. And the we did it was a 20-40-40 judging criteria. It was 20% quality of beer, it was 40% the story of how it actually relates to local, and 40% of whether there's like marketability and scalability of the product. So the we just announced the winners a week or two ago. We're also working with Brandon Hernandez, is another writer in San Diego, and he does a yearly summer homebrew series. He does San Diego Beer News is the name of his outlet, and so we submitted a couple with them. But we have 4 winners. So the best in show, actually, Thorn, my brewery, is going to be brewing. And what they did was, they took the idea of a Berliner Weiss. So Berliner Weiss, I imagine when you go, I've never been to Belgium or to Europe, but when you get a Berliner Weiss, you have the flavored syrups that you can add to it, correct?
Yeah.
So in Florida, which again, if we're looking at the oval of America, it's on the exact opposite side of the bottom. In Florida, they started a Florida Weiss, which is a Berliner Weiss, but instead of syrups, they use tropical fruit because tropical fruit grows in Florida.
Yep.
This home brewer was a couple. They actually cultivated their own wild yeast in San Diego. They came up with the idea of a San Diego Weiss, which is a Berliner Weiss but uses citrus fruit because citrus is what we grow.
Okay.
So they ended up winning the competition, and Thorn is going to be brewing a San Diego Weiss with them. So that is like an idea of the competition that we had and the types of submissions that we were getting in the winners. So it hit the key mark for us of, when we're talking about what does a San Diego estate beer look like. Well,
Yeah.
citrus fruit is a great one because we grow a shitload of citrus. So like, boom, nailed it. Now when these guys were making these beers, the deal was we were trying to keep it vague enough where we were letting them be creative and come up with their own ideas, because we don't necessarily have the answer either. We have ideas ourselves. So we wanted to give them the creative freedom to kind of explore the space, but we also wanted to keep it like tight enough to give them a heads up. Hey, here's how we're going to be judging, heads up. And uh, so their story was remarkable. They're actually creating a style, which is what I want. I want a style to come out of this, or more than one, because then I actually have something to go to the farmers with and be like, hey, we're now doing, let's say it's a grapefruit Berliner Weiss, grow a shitload of grapefruit.
Okay.
And then that's easy. If every brewer is just coming up with their own beers that use ingredients grown in San Diego, it's not bad. It's not the end of the world. That's great that they supporting local agriculture, but that's gonna be very difficult to scale because I don't know how to tell a farmer what to grow. I don't know. Oh, some random brewer is gonna want sage in 6 months. Like, I don't know. So I'd be limited in what I'd be able to do to help bring that up.
Right.
Did
Yeah.
I?
It was yeah. No, that made sense. Sorry, I have a dog walking around here just banged into
Oh
something.
no, it's okay. Sometimes I'm like, am I rambling? Did I answer that question?
No, no, that it did, because this was a part I was really interested in. Well, one of the many parts I was interested in was where you went from like just making it a beer with locally grown ingredients to
Mm-hmm.
making it a San Diego beer. Like
Yep.
one, I know, like yeah, you could make, like I said, a West Coast IPA and just grow all the ingredients in San Diego, but
Mm-hmm.
what makes it, yeah, you're helping the local
Yeah.
farmer, not because they're growing something, and you could say that the terroir of it all like maybe
Mm-hmm.
affects the ingredients, but it is nothing truly special on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's what I'm trying to get to in this. Like, there is kind of the idea of supporting local, even if it's just another variation of the same beer, but it's all grown locally, and you're supporting more than just the brewery, you're supporting the whole community, and that's nice. And I think people do want to do that, and like you say, for the purpose of supporting their community and for environmental purposes. And I suppose there's a romanticism, like this is coming from this year's crops that only come, it'll be different from next year's crops. But there is a difference between that and beer style that is influenced,
Mm-hmm.
that the actual style that is influenced from where you are, that's, and it's
Well,
how you, yeah, it's just how you separate that out, like
mm,
which is the way to go on it. And I guess what you're saying is, you well, you did say like that you're hoping that there will be a style that truly reflects San Diego rather than San Diego reflecting the style.
yeah. So there's the practicality of what we're trying to do, and then there's the romance of it. And really, what I want is for San Diego beer to utilize San Diego agriculture. I want Belgian beer to utilize Belgian agriculture. I want more responsible farming being supported, more local farming being supported, and more local breweries being supported. Right? That's what I want. Now, let's take yeast for example. California ale yeast. All the IPAs that you see that come out of America use California ale yeast. Sierra Nevada created that yeast up in Northern California. It's like, I don't know, 8 hours north of San Diego, maybe, and a little bit inland. Now, like, the yeast, it was like, think of it as like an invention, right? It was invented there. Now we have a lab in San Diego, and they just continuously repitch that yeast and reharvest it. So you can make the case that, yeah, it's not native to San Diego, but it is being made in San Diego. Operationally, that makes sense, and it fits the definition of what a San Diego state beer would be. It kind of loses the romance. So I am trying to be as practical as possible and realistic with what we can do, and but also supporting the like romantic efforts. So for me, just scavenging for San Diego ingredients fits the base of the practicality. And a little bit of the romance. But I think creating a new style is really special. That's extra. It is way more romantic, but then it also marries over to the practicality. So the romance actually allows us to be more practical in the same sense. And I would want I not that I don't want people in Belgium to have access to it. That's not the point. I want San Diego to make its San Diego style, and I want Belgium to make its own Belgian style. And then it's a special experience when you come to San Diego. Try our local stuff. When I go to Belgium, I want to try the Belgian stuff. And not that I don't want Belgian brews to make
Yeah.
American styles, and I don't want Americans to make Belgian styles, but um, back
No, but
to the romance. It's cool to like explore and experience different cultures, and like, oh, let's perfect our own styles, and you guys perfect your styles, and then we enjoy
yeah,
yours, you enjoy it.
and you can influence, and that, because that is something that, I mean, you've probably seen it as well. I mean, beer tourism is big. Like, people want to go, and I even was talking to Killarney Brewing there last year, and they were saying the biggest factor that encouraged the local pubs to to support them was that tourists were coming in to Killarney pubs and asking what's the local beer. Before
Yeah,
that, they just wanted, like, the pubs would only deal with Guinness and Heineken because
yeah,
they got better deals from them. But that, and it wasn't the locals who were looking for it; it was the
hmm,
tourists were coming in looking for what the local beers are.
yeah,
And so, yeah, like, in some cases, in many cases, like, that romance is maybe lost on the locals, but as soon as they go somewhere else, they want the.
hmm,
But when you're at home, it's like, I suppose it's like people in New York don't go to the Empire State Building. It's because
yeah,
it's there.
yeah.
It,
So yeah, that's interesting. So where are you? You're from Ireland?
I'm from Cork, in south, yeah, down the south of Ireland. Yeah.
Uh, a little Irish background. My last name is Kiely, by the way. Uh,
Well, yeah.
but
Well,
Irish.
obviously the Boston thing is.
Yeah, 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 right. Everyone, it's Irish or Italian. Everybody.
Yeah.
Are you in Belgium now?
I'm in Belgium at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure I wasn't making it. I keep referencing Belgium because I
No, no.
saw it looked like there said it's Belgian. All right, cool.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I'm living in Belgium, but I'm originally from Ireland, so
so in the local beer bars in Belgium, do you
yeah.
see a lot of Belgian beer? I mean, the
You
interesting thing about Belgian
pretty much
beer,
only see Belgian beer.
really?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, if you look, Guinness is about the only other one you'd see. Everything else is Belgian. But having said that, Belgian beer is huge chunk of it is owned by AB InBev. It is but they kept the brands. So that there's a lot of Jupiler and that they're owned by that big multinational
Hmm.
company. Um, but at the same time, there is an incredible um, there's an incredible number of small breweries here who do have access to the pubs and the local bars, and people do support local here a lot as
Hmm.
well. And you will go into the bars and you will get your beer that is brewed in the local abbey or the local
Hmm.
brewery. They do that, but I suppose the other thing is, because they have such a culture here, that, and maybe it's the risk of having a style, they really just want their blondes, their triple.
Yeah.
They don't. They're only starting to move beyond that and
Hmm.
test out things. And there's whole arguments about they don't like cans, has to be bottles,
Hmm.
because they've got this idea that it
Yeah.
that the things that everybody went through 20 years ago everywhere else.
Hmm.
But yeah, but it is a very local thing, and you can go to there's a brewery, it's bound to be a brewery somewhere near you.
Yeah.
And And so it is a good culture for that. Like I said, it's just trying to separate out which ones are the multinational, which have kept the brand, which ones are the
Yeah.
true local brewery.
Yeah, I was always curious, like how many, like when we think Belgian beer here, you can't help but think like like sour beers, and how many sour beers can you really drink? So I imagine you don't have like 35 lines of blended
No,
aged sours.
yeah, no. In most of the bars, you'll get your doubles, your triples, your browns. But having some, yeah, like you said, I mean, sours are big here. You do see guzz and creeks and stuff. You can get them in every bar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are some obviously levels then of it, but they are spontaneously fermented, and they are
Yeah.
around the area. So yeah, but there's quite you can see them in every bar. You could always go in and get a creek or a guzz.
That's interesting because in San Diego and Boston when I left, it's like most bars will have a sour beer, but it's not spontaneously fermented. It's like 9 out of 10 times if they have a sour beer, it's a kettle sour.
Okay. No, here I'm sure there are kettle sours if you look, but they do.
Mhm.
They yeah, I mean, it is nice that way. They do take a pride in a lot of the beers and in how they're done.
Good.
And I guess, I mean, that comes back to your question about the yeast. Obviously the yeast there is unique to, if it's a spontaneous, it's unique to what happens to be in the
Yeah.
atmosphere. Not even as a general thing, but on that particular night. And I don't know, because you're blending it, how much.
Mm.
I don't know how much of that has an effect, and how much is just romance because
Hmm.
it's spontaneous, because you're going to
Yeah.
blend it in, and you have the fruit and you have all that probably overwhelms everything else. But it is a thing that they take pride. But I do remember reading, I think it was from Tree Fontaine, that they were saying it's not the yeast so much, it's not the spontaneous nature, but what you were saying, the wort, the grains that
Mm.
they use, grains that are grown in the area,
Nice.
that are malted in the area, and that's what at least they were saying. And I guess they probably know they're pretty good. Like
Yeah.
that, that to them was what made it unique, and
Uh-huh.
that's what made it special. And that
Nice.
will come back to what you're saying. It's the one side of what you're saying. That is something that you can make a spontaneous beer anywhere. Um, but it will be a spontaneous, and if you use the grains from there, it is a spontaneous beer that is unique and uses maybe the fruits that are unique to
Hmm.
that area. It's still a spontaneous beer. You can argue whether you're allowed to call it lambic or not, but
Hmm.
no, but it is something that is unique to, say, San Diego, as opposed to a Belgian, and there will be a difference. And that's kind of something that you would never be able to say about it if it's brewed in Boston. That'll
Yeah.
be slightly different, or at least in
Well, no,
theory.
in San Diego, the Belgian breweries are held in the highest regards. I know you might think arrogant Americans think they're the best at everything. Give a lot of credit to the Belgian brewers. The Irish, not so much. No respect for the Irish brewers.
Well, to be honest, I, we can argue about you don't know enough anymore.
Hey,
But no,
I intentionally distanced myself from that. I'm saying the other people,
yeah,
not me.
no. But I
I
mean,
love all of them.
In Ireland, there was not any. All our brewers died out nearly. There was three big breweries left. And they were all owned by multinationals. And funny enough, there were three stout brewers that just happened to be
Hmm.
Guinness, Murphy's, and Beamish, which were stout
Hmm.
brewers, and they got bought. Guinness is obviously part of Diageo. Murphy's, I think, was Heineken, and Beamish was bought by someone else. I think it might be owned by Heineken now as well. But that was all that was left. So we did only have stouts and really terrible lagers. It's only in the last 15 years, and even less, that there has been an explosion of
Hmm.
small craft breweries. Like, there's nothing compared to America, obviously, but like there's about 60 now at the moment, and
Nice.
they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. Like, there's spontaneous is becoming. It seems to be of interest to the brewers themselves. So
Awesome.
there's quite a number doing spontaneous, some doing raw ales, and that. So I think maybe you might have to revisit that at some stage.
Yeah. All
Um,
right, deal.
we'll try and see if we
No,
can
I'll tell
get
the other
some.
people. The other
Yeah.
people that were bad mouthing you, I'll let them know. I already
Okay.
respect you.
No, there are some good ones. But yeah, I think if you'd gone back 10 years, you'd be pretty much hard pushed to find a good brewer.
Okay.
There was only a handful. But yeah, so let's come back and stop bad mouthing other breweries and talk about the practicalities of this. So you're setting up. I just wanted to know about how you're going to market it. Like you said, you're going to try and make up a style, but how is it going to be? How are you going to let the public know about this? Like, how will someone be able to say this is a San Diego beer that is
Mhm.
like maybe a San Diego visor, but it's actually made in San Diego versus someone in Florida has copied it and just made it? Like, do you have? Are you copywriting any branding, or what's the story on that?
Yeah, so we've developed a temporary logo. I don't think it'll be our final logo, but it's at least something to carry us for now. And we've been developing marketing plans and business plans. So the actual marketing push has not been developed. We anticipate this is going to take many years. This isn't something that'll just be ready to go tomorrow. It's going to take many years of coordination. We're just getting it off the ground. So the specific marketing plan, I don't have an answer for you in the moment, but we are talking about creating like a are you familiar with the independent beer sale in America?
Yeah, I think, and there are equivalents around. Like, I mean,
Okay, so in America, if you're a craft brewery, you can put, and you're encouraged to, the Brewers Association, which is our national like guild. They created this logo. It's an upside down beer bottle, and it's used to represent an independently owned brewery. Because the term craft was kind of co-opted when you, especially on like high level industry platforms like IRI and Nielsen, they're the ones that like collect all the data on who's selling. They will include like Shock Top and Blue Moon in craft, because to them,
right.
craft just means something that isn't a like a light lager. Is pretty much ultimately what it is. So, in order to separate ourselves and help educate the consumer, because the consumer wants to support independent breweries, at least in America, that's like part of the fun of exploring craft beer is supporting these small businesses. So, that label has helped the consumer identify to know the difference between a Legion or a Shock Top and Thorn. And so we have talked about creating a certification that breweries can use on their beers to identify it as an estate beer. We've also talked about creating more comprehensive design templates for breweries to use if they want. But where there's going to be a challenge, and I don't even mean that in a bad sense, as it might be something that we just never actually address. We might not Most breweries want to be creative. They want to do their own thing. They don't want to do the thing that everyone else is doing. So they don't want to use a like label template. There's this thing called Organic Valley I don't know if it's just California.
Okay.
Going a little over my skis here. A friend pointed out to me, and I've seen it before. But what they do is they're pretty much like a co-op, and they support a bunch of local and regional dairies, and they create their own logo, their own platform. On the back, they have like a little story about the farmers. So you're not guaranteed that that milk came from that farmers, but that's one of the few
Yeah.
farms that milk could have possibly come from. So we've talked about doing things like that, but I think ultimately it's going to be the style name is what. So we will have San Diego State Beer styles, and in order to use the style, in theory, you're going to have to use the San Diego ingredients, and that's going to be how we help the consumer identify what's a San Diego beer and a state beer and what isn't. It's going to
Okay.
be
So
mostly honest system. Here's like where it really comes down to is this is not a well-funded group or company that can do a whole lot to market and force independently of itself. It's really a network for
okay.
for farmers that want to grow things and have a market, and for brewers that want to use local agriculture. And we're going to do the best that we can to tie everyone together and come up with ideas and programs to make it work for everyone. But we're going to be pretty limited in the ways that we can really control this once it goes to the breweries.
Okay. So yeah, no, I was thinking that, like, yes, I suppose it comes down to, yeah, I thought maybe you were going to have some sort of, and I was trying to figure out how you to do it, so
Yeah.
some sort of licensing scheme, and then you have to check it, and I think that
Hmm.
sounded like a big organization,
Yeah. I think what will probably make sense is we trademark the style, and
Okay.
then we enforce the trademark, but we offer exemptions or permissions for people to use it that we know are authentically doing it. So we're not going to like charge people to use it, but it'll be like a Pure Project is one of the breweries participating in this project, and Pure Project will be like, hey, I'm doing this beer with this farm. It's a San Diego State beer, and we'll be like, cool. And like, here's a letter, because in America, when you create a trademark, if you don't enforce it, you lose it. So
Okay.
if I have San Diego State beer, the trademark, and you keep using it, and I don't send you a cease and desist, then I'm going to lose power of
Okay.
it, and actually you could take it in theory. So we can extend permission to Pure Project. I would probably just give a blanket permission. Hey, you don't have to like tell us every time you're making a beer. It's just like, Pure Project, you have license to use this, and we would work with the lawyer and exactly how we have to
Yeah.
enforce that. But we would give permission to people that we know are doing it authentically, and we would send out notes to stop that they don't have permission to people that we think are just taking advantage of it.
Right. And the styles then, would you see, I suppose, would you see, well, you couldn't, I suppose, if you're going to do that, you couldn't see them become kind of internationally judged styles or anything like that if you're going to be limiting it that way. Would you like,
No, no, it could, but like I don't really care. Like I don't care that a Belgian brewer can make a San Diego style. That's not like, but like local competitions. Like I would love San Diego International Beer Festival is the big San Diego like local competition. I would want that style in that competition,
okay.
and I don't need it at JBF. But
Yeah.
if they did want to make it, I mean, people can still make the style. It's just you got to call it something else
Yeah.
if you're
Or,
not using the ingredients from San Diego. It's like
yeah.
Champagne does that, right?
Well, yeah. Well, no, I don't know about in
Kind of.
America, but over here, you are not allowed to use the word champagne unless
Yeah,
it's from champagne. Yeah.
yeah. It's sparkling
So,
wine if you make it
yeah,
outside of there.
exactly. Yeah, and I think the Italians got a now of prosecco like is the big one because
Hmm.
they seem to have dug at it for a while and kind of made
Yeah,
prosecco the brand. But
tequila does it too.
do they? Is tequila protect the
It's an
term?
it's an agave spirit
Ah,
elsewhere.
okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Learned something.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, champagne is I suppose one. Yeah, that is, yeah, it has that protected thing. But
yeah.
everybody makes, yeah, sparkling wines. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting. So let me just check. There was a couple of things. Yeah, so I think I mean, you've covered. Yeah, just coming back slowly, just because I don't want to leave this because it's fascinating. The yeast you're saying. So will will it be like if the yeast comes out, no matter what type it is, it comes out of a lab in San Diego, or are you trying to get them to do something spontaneous or to harvest and maybe come up with some combination of yeast that has been harvested originally in
Hmm.
San Diego, or how is that going to work into it? Or have you thought that?
So yeah, again, from the practicality standard, yeast is like pretty low priority because
Okay.
again, we can make it. Almost everything can be harvested, right? That being said, the goal is to have local native strains. So White Labs has expressed a willingness to work on that part of the project with us. We actually, so for the homebrew competition that we just did with Quaff, one thing I forgot to mention. So we had the homebrew competition. We identified the winners. The winners being paired with professional brewers and making that beer for Guildfest. Guildfest is the beer festival which kicks off San Diego Beer Week every year. So it's the
Okay.
first Saturday in November. It's the 5th, I believe. And so we're going to have a featured table, a featured tent of these beers at
Okay.
Guildfest. These collabs, and they'll be featured there. But where was I? I lost my train
Yeah,
of thought there.
so we're still on the yeast. Yeah,
Oh, the
about
yeast. So actually, so the home brewer that did that native yeast I told you about with the beer that we're collabing with, they actually won two of their beers won, and they use that same yeast for both. White Labs is going to try to help um,
commercialize that.
harvest, yeah, and repopulate that yeast, and we will continue to try to come up with other yeast strains as this progresses. But again, it's not the top priority, but it is something that we are actively working on.
Yeah, yeast is it always fascinates me. I've been doing, reading a lot of stuff, Fikes and, Lars
Yeah,
Mary's commercial stuff on farmhouse beers and that, and the yeasts and those they're some pretty amazing stuff. Some of them do.
yeah.
It's fascinating. So where do you? I mean, to try and wrap this up because I'm going to hold you. I know you're still early over there. So where do you think this has come from? Where is it at in its stage, and how scalable is it? Like, and then I have one more question for you after that. Then,
Yeah, I here's what's tough right now is San Diego State Fair is still at very, very early stages. And there's enthusiasm and there's potential. But it hasn't really been around long enough where we have a really good infrastructure of like a well connected team that
okay,
I trust this thing can keep moving forward without me there. I left. I'm not living in San Diego anymore. I'm going back for Guild Fest because I'm helping to organize it through the Brewers Guild, and featuring this. Um, I have some people that are still interested and committed, but I don't now have. I had my own brewery that I could anchor this project around. I was going to pivot Thorn to slowly, a 10-year plan to use all like local ingredients up. I was going to make a plan like that, and I can't. I don't have that anymore. So I need another brewery to anchor this project if it's going to work, in my opinion, as I envision it. So I'm hoping it's able to continue. This Guild Fest is the next. It's the kind of the last step in this homebrew competition, and that's the last fixed thing that we had in place. So I am still trying to put a team together to keep this thing moving, but that is the biggest hurdle. Is that it's at this point it's an idea that has a small project attached to it, which is the homebrew competition, and getting now to that next step is going to be very difficult for us. That's the biggest problem with currently scaling. That being said, if that were not an issue, um, the most important part of scalability is having committed breweries that are down to make it work. And if you have, especially if you have a big brewery like Allagash in Maine is doing, I believe it's Maine grown, and they committed to using something like 1 million pounds of Maine grown grain over like a 10-year period. I think they hit their goal. If we had a brewery, if you have a brewery like that locally, they do so much. Maine probably does more beer than 98% of the other breweries combined. And so it's so easy for other breweries. Like if you have the infrastructure to grow what Allagash needs, then you probably have the infrastructure to add on the 5 or 10% additional that these other breweries would need. So if you having that big anchor brewery and having a key agricultural partner, and if you have those two, I see it as very doable, assuming that you have the landscape, the climate to grow the things necessary to make it work.
yeah. But then just thinking that, like, so Allagash are doing their thing, but they're not marketing it like you said. It's Maine grown, but it's Allagash. They're not trying to create a Maine estate beer as such, are they? I mean, it is a
No, no, no. They're just, well, at least again, from what I understand, no, they're just trying to support local agriculture.
right, but
Um,
you're saying that could be
they could easily
leveraged.
pivot. They could easily pivot that to a Maine estate beer, in like we're doing, and then you can do that. You can do that anywhere.
Right.
Grain, I mean, I meant outside of the Midwest in America, grain is going to be probably the hottest thing for everybody. Because
Okay.
in theory, you can like I think for this to really take off, I think you would probably have to see the Gruit style grow and compartmentalize. I think we'd have to expand on Gruit, and we'd have to find ways to bitter with things other than hops.
Right.
That's not necessarily like, especially if you're just using hops to bitter, then you have a little bit more flexibility with the hops that you can use. The aromatic hops, from what I understand, it's pretty select regions where it can grow, and I don't know that, which is why an IPA might not be the style of beer that people should, that regions should be growing,
Yeah.
pushing as their local style. It should be based a little bit more on what the local agriculture can support, and
Yeah.
you have to. The thing that makes it so tricky, grain is really the only thing that you can't. It's like non-negotiable. So that's why, like, all right, yeast, technically, you can harvest it and just keep, repopulating it where you are. You can use different things to bitter. So hops, you can have a little bit of flexibility, but like there isn't anything for grain. I mean, at that point, it's not a beer. If you're not, if you're not fermenting grain, then is it even beer? So that's why that one's so tricky, and the amount of space that you need in the equipment
Yeah.
is challenging.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that was the question. Yeah. Like, to come back, I suppose that brings it back around to where we started with. There are farmers who are doing their own thing, and that's what Allagash are doing. But how can you leverage that and make it into a beer that people associate with a region,
Hmm.
or and yeah, and I guess America is a little bit like, I'm thinking in Ireland and even Belgium here, like there are smaller farmers, there's grain everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's not an issue for us. It's
Yeah.
hops if you're doing hops. But even those, again, like you said, it's the aromatic hops. I mean, people have been growing Saz and golden hops and stuff
Hmm.
for centuries here. So they've been using them, and Gruits and stuff are, well, they're still around, but
Hmm.
yeah, the grain isn't the problem really. It's the aromatic hops seem to be like where everybody is. And is there a, I guess it comes back to the thing, is
Well,
everything an IPA, an aromatic IPA, a hazy IPA from now on, or
yeah,
can
and
we get
and
away from
where I'm hopeful in like a path forward that I see from there, without demanding that the consumer just completely change their palate and their demand. I can't help but notice all of the IPAs, people associate the hop character with fruits and herbs and things that actually exist. So instead of maybe, grapefruit is a very popular aroma and flavor in a lot of these hops, right? Well, maybe instead of a hop that gives the aroma of grapefruit, you use real grapefruit zest, right? And that might have to be the type of pivot that you see to make something like this work.
Yeah, never thought of, but yeah, everybody refers to the hops that they refer to either the some sort of citrus fruit
Yeah.
or or something like for stouts.
Nobody's like, oh, I really like the grass flavor. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's always like, no, I like the grapefruit flavor. I like the lemon flavor. It's like, all right, well, what if we used grapefruit and lemon? Which
Yeah.
has it. They have their own challenges, but at least it's a path forward that I could see.
Yeah, and they could keep the thing. But even at that, I don't know about in America. But I mean, and maybe just because I've been talking to brewers, it's become a bit more obvious, and I've got more interest. But like I said, sours and farmhouse beers and saisons and all that, there seems to be some sort of growing interest in that.
Hmm.
Maybe it's not kind of in the general public, but there is at least a chance for people to go out and try different beers. And again, if you're doing it as a local beer, you're visiting a town, and that is their style of beer. Like if you're take that, if you're used to an IPA and you come to Belgium, you'll probably try a Cantillon. You
Hmm.
mightn't like it, you'll try it,
Yeah.
So just because it's the local beer, you'll try something once.
Yeah.
Well, sours are a bit of an extreme one because they take that they're an acquired taste. But yeah, but you try a blonde or something like that and go along with that. So yeah, that's interesting. So is that what you think? I just want to bring around to how, or is this possible? I think you've kind of answered it for other localities. Like you said, if you think you probably need a big brewery to make it work?
I think a big a committed regional brewery is the key to making these feasible.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, or again, maybe that's down to thing. I'm just thinking, like, if you had a network of small breweries. I'm just wondering what your advice, I guess, is for anybody else who got inspired by this and thinks, yeah, this is an idea, we could do it. What would your advice be about getting started? What do you need in place, and how would you advise them to get started?
Hmm. Would this be like like a consumer or like a brewer?
A brewer, I guess, or maybe maybe even a farmer who thought that there was. Well, okay. Farmers know, because they'll probably just set up their own
Yeah.
farmhouse brewery. But if maybe not even a brewery, maybe there's a tourism organization
Hmm.
on
Yeah.
something that that is local. If some group that wants something local, and how would they? What would you advise them to? What needs to be in place,
Hmm.
and what do you think their steps would be to make it work?
Yeah. So I would recommend um, finding the key is finding organizations that already have the networks. So to go to a bunch of different breweries or to go to a bunch of different farmers is challenging. Whereas if you go to a brewers guild and you go to like for us, we had like Chip was a farming advocacy organization. So San Diego Brewers Guild and Chip, for me, I now had access to 90 breweries in San Diego, and I have access to at least 40 farms in San Diego County. That's a great place to start. And uh, pitching them on the idea, like it's 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 been not even selling them; it's reintroducing them to the foundation of craft beer. It's hey, this is what craft beer was founded on. It's local styles based on local ingredients. Consumers are becoming increasingly conscious of where their money's going, and they want to support local. Um, we consistently advocate as brewers for consumers to support local. We should be doing the same in our supply chain. It's been a very easy sales pitch for me. People get it immediately. Then it's okay. We get the breweries on board. I recommend going to a brewers guild. We get the farmers on board. I recommend finding a local farming advocacy group. Just get them in a room together. Be like, hey, what would it take for our local farmers and our local brewers to work together? And for us, or where I see it is, how can we? Is it possible where we create a new style of beer, or we take an existing style of beer and just create um, like a local economic loop to make it happen? I think the best ways to do it, to having a group purchasing organization, for us is very beneficial. But a farming co-op would be very. If you have a local farming co-op, then they already have the network and they already have all the infrastructure to sell all the ingredients, and an ordering platform for all the breweries to order from. That's a real, I think, important key. I think those are the foundationals, and having for us having the style is really, I think, key to making that work. Even if it's just focusing on one. Let's say it's an Irish red. It's like the ingredients in an Irish red. Be like, can we grow these things locally? What do we have to do to support it?
Right.
And um, so advocacy I don't even think is as important as other people say. At least in San Diego beer, at breweries, my brewery made 60 beers last year, and they all sell. People don't most people don't know what's in it and they don't care. They just want the experience of trying a new beer. So there's already the desire to try something new. So it's more the developing the infrastructure, the farmers and the brewers. That is way more important, in my opinion, than it is consumer awareness, at least off the bat. And so, was that
Okay.
a helpful
So
answer at all?
no, I think if I can summarize it, so it's, yeah, get the two producer types,
Yeah,
elements together, or three. So your farmers, your brewers, and then just put out the beer, and then from there create the awareness among the public. But get
yeah,
that part working first, and then you can create the awareness. But rather than trying to create a demand, which then pulls that trying to create a demand among the public is
yeah,
probably one way to start, because they don't care
Yeah.
to start with. So start with the producers. I think that makes sense. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Listen, Tom, I don't know if there's something I should have asked, because I've had you for over an hour now. I should let you go and have breakfast or do something over there. But so is there something I didn't mention, like I didn't ask, or that you think was important to cover or anything?
No, I think we covered most of it. But if
Good.
you have
Nice.
any other questions, I mean, feel free anytime to email
Yeah.
me, or if you need a video, we can do a quick video chat.
Okay, we'll do that. I've
Yeah.
got my mind going. I wonder whether we could get you back to with a couple of other maybe farmers or something from over here to
Yeah,
have it.
especially if it's anytime later than 2 weeks. I have travel brain right now. She's not
Okay.
firing on all cylinders. We're
And
doing a lot of driving.
are you heading back to Massachusetts? Is that where you're ultimately
Slowly.
going, or slowly?
Yeah,
Slowly.
so I'm in Austin, Texas right now. I got to go to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to Knoxville, Tennessee, Asheville, North Carolina, Evansville, Indiana, State College, Pennsylvania, and Philly, Pennsylvania. And those are my stops. It's where I know people. So
Right. Good
I'm
luck.
never. I just visited my buddy in San Antonio, Texas. I'm never going to San Antonio, Texas. This is the one time that I could be like, hey, I had a chance to see you. I saw you. I did my part.
And then you can go into the pub and say, "What's the local beer?"
Yeah,
That's the plan.
yeah.
So listen, it was brilliant. I actually have something kind of related. I've next week talking about grains and terroir. I don't know
All
if you're
right.
free, if your time, it'll be around the same time. I'll let you know. But feel free to come on and just ask questions if you are available. But you're probably, from the sound of it, you won't be.
I'll
But
be on the road, but
I have Waterford Whiskey who are doing they've been doing a range of single farm malt whiskies, and they've really got into the kind of the terroir of the grains and the effect it's having. And then I have a brewer who's a farmhouse brewer as well coming on, and he's been doing some of that and heritage grains. And so there'll be a chat about that. So it kind of
so
relates.
a little connection that next to Thorn Brewing in San Diego is a distillery. We share an owner. All of their booze is distilled beer.
Oh,
Everything.
everything.
And yeah, the distiller finds that the fermentation process does enough to alter the flavor that you get from, it's different from than just doing a straight, grain
Okay.
wash.
Yeah, I've
So
had one or two beer distilled. I don't know what you call them, but yeah, distilled from beer. I've had one or two. I actually had one at a farm, and they used to get the beer back or something, the unsold beer, and then start
yeah,
distilling without a license. And
yeah.
someone
Oh boy.
someone ended up in jail, I believe, at one point. But
Oh,
anyway, but I
I love it.
promised to never mention who it was. So
Off air.
so
Tell me off air.
I'll tell you. So I'll tell you in a minute. Listen, gonna let you go. I'm going to just do this video, just play it out again for
Okay.
what's coming up next week. And yeah, so I just want to say thanks. I'm sure we'll see quite a few people will hopefully be watching this on the replay over the next
Cool.
week or two. And yeah, it was good. So hopefully we'll get to talk to you again about all of this, and wherever you end up.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for
All
having me.
right. No problem. It was a pleasure. Let me just play this out and we'll finish this up.